We're here, the last session of the event. Thank you for everybody for participating and for still being here. I know energy starts to fade. You kind of get into the mid part of the Sunday afternoon, but it's really cool that you're all here. And so what we're doing now at this point is we're actually starting to turn our attention towards going home and what our community and our WordPress community looks like on the other side of WordCamp. You come here, you see it gets all energized and all exciting, and then it's like we go home and it's like, how do we keep that going throughout the coming seasons, throughout into the next year? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what does the WordPress community, or how do we reinvigorate our local communities going forward. This is the first big event that we've had, the first time we've all been able to get together in a really long time. We don't want to, there's another event coming up in June, so we're starting to get some momentum. But how do we all participate in that going forward? And these wonderful people here have joined us to help kind of, carry on or facilitate that discussion. So I have some questions that I am going to pose to you. My first question is, what's the current state of local organising in Australia? Where are we at?
It's a great question, and I think to start off, it's probably going to be useful for all of us to provide a little bit of context about where we sit in the current WordPress community, because for myself, I've been a WordPress Meetup organiser since 2018. I have spoken at, I think, 7 WordCamps now. This is my first time being an organiser for one. And I think the question was like, what's the current status of the community?
Yeah, what does the current local organising landscape look like? Shaky.
And I mean, for me personally, we had a big break post-COVID, and a lot of that came down to organiser burnout. So often it's just one of us that's doing a lot of the work, and that's not a comment on anyone else in the community. But it can be really challenging when you also have a business to run, or a job to hold, or a family to raise. I only have one of those things, which is a business to run, but it still is really challenging when you're the only person and you can't really rely on anyone else to pick up the reins. And I have had other organisers assist as we've kind of come through, but being the only person that's responsible for making sure that the events are announced, coming up with ideas for the topics, finding speakers, and finding speakers is by far the hardest challenge that we've come across. And then also organising things like venue and sponsorship, which is getting increasingly harder. So I think for us, the answer is shaky. That's where we're at the moment, and it makes it really difficult and challenging and scary to be organising a meetup in the current climate.
And so you're, just to be clear, you're organising in WA, so you're over in Perth?
I organise the WordPress Meetup in Perth, in Western Australia.
Hello, Vladimir. I'm organizer of WordPress Meetup in Brisbane. I've been organizer of WordPress Meetup for about 18 months. I think we're about to hit 18 months since it's restarted. I actually come from different type of community where I run Meetup for about 8 years. Also open source, also PHP. Starts with D. But I also was part of Joomla community, and I like to go to the other type of meetups just to bounce the ideas. COVID definitely, just to reiterate Joe's comments, COVID definitely hit, regardless of the technology, people's patterns, so to speak, how they come into the city or specific areas, when they do it. So by far the most prominent Brisbane meetup was Node.js JavaScript, which pre-pandemic used to get 100 people basically sold out every month, and they're still struggling to get into the 40s still, and we're in 2024. So it's definitely challenging, but for some other technologies, the meetup just died. Like, I was trying to sustain Drupal meetup for as long as I could in Queensland, but there's no interest in the community to come face-to-face apart from the conferences. So we kind of acknowledged that, and then saw opportunity in picking up a meetup for WordPress. And since then, we did struggle with the speakers, but lately we've been having 2 strong speakers every month.
Great.
Fingers crossed. And if you're from Brisbane, next meetup is next week, Wednesday. We
Cool.
don't need much sponsorship as we use library. And the community room is great. It runs after hours. They allow us to have pizza. There is a kitchen. But even library is struggling, so they actually cut down on the tea.
Yeah.
So there's no more tea bags.
Can I ask?
Fun fact.
Thanks, Vladimir. So can I ask Zachary and Sandra, what are you doing? Where are you at with what's going on in your community, or because you're organising Brisbane. Joe's representing Perth, I'm representing Melbourne, and there's absolutely nothing happened, so I have nothing to say other than to ask these questions. Tell us where you're at and what you're doing or keen to do.
Yeah, my name's Zach. I'm more of a WordPress developer, so I'm more on the technical side.
Yeah.
I haven't been too involved in the community up to so the past couple of years. I went to, I think, the last WordCamp here in 2019.
Yeah.
So it was great to be back this year, obviously. we do have a meetup in Sydney, so I have been to that one.
Yeah.
But
Yay. So it's one other person.
And so, yeah, it's, I guess my perspective is probably more from an outsider perspective,
Yeah.
sort of a newer perspective. From what I've seen, I think what we've seen this weekend is the community's there, but it's right now it's quite quiet. And I think from the meetups that I've been to, it is pretty quiet at the moment. I think there's definitely opportunity there to grow, I think.
What do you think, Sandra?
Hello, everyone. My name's Sandra. I'm a junior software developer, and I am fresh. This is my first WordCamp, and also I haven't been using WordPress for that long, so I have been to some of the WA meetups that Joe organises. I think that there's a lot of value in this community. Having experienced this for the first time, I've had a wonderful time getting to know everyone and speaking to people, and everyone's so friendly and welcoming. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth and bringing in other juniors who are coming up in the industry as well. I hope that, despite the challenges and, I'm coming to this industry after COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was like before, but hopefully we can, foster the community.
So we had an opportunity while we were talking through that to address some of those challenges of people being time poor, challenges of people getting over that mindset of leaving the house. I know I certainly, as someone who is in Melbourne and through a really, really rough season, actually has found it quite difficult to kind of get back into the flow of, I got very comfortable at home. I've got everything I need there. I can order everything I want online. I don't actually have to leave the house. And it's coming somewhere like this that goes, actually, this is a great deal of benefit, and I actually really love the people that we're meeting up with. So some of those are some of the hurdles, but are there other hurdles that we are struggling with? We have support, you mentioned sponsorship, we do have avenues that we can push into that, but are there other blockages or roadblocks that we might not have thought of yet?
I think right now, because a lot of things are remote, it's just easier to, isolate and then kind of find yourself in a space where it's hard to reach out or ask for help, it's coming from a junior developer perspective. Me in particular, I work remotely, which kind of adds another layer of complexity to it. I think maybe, setting up webinars or that type of event where we are reaching out virtually can kind of start that connection, and then we can maybe slowly build into in-person events and stuff and slowly bring that back. And because we've all kind of adjusted to a new way of life.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just wind it back a little bit and not jumping into the deep end straight away. Maybe that's a nice way to kind of ease in.
It's a good thought. Thank you.
I was probably going to say the same thing. So I think you do get comfortable working from home. You get in that sort of bubble that we've sort of been in. So I think it is difficult to get out of that and get out of that comfort zone and come, to events like this and even to meetups. And you mentioned family as well. Myself, I've got young kids, so it is challenging sometimes to get out in the evening to come to the city. These are all fairly common challenges, I think. But hopefully I think virtual is a good potential pathway. Engaging with the
I definitely think there's space for that there. Vlad?
Oh, if we learn from the history, it seems to bounce back, and history seems to repeat itself. So they also canceled Meetup 100 years ago when there was a pandemic. Actually, looking at the patterns, it seems like we will get back to usual stuff. There's lots of government organizations and companies bring people back into the offices, and seems trying to stick with a kind of older pattern from that perspective. I think that's going to bounce back one way or another. Obviously, conferences are not struggling by the look of it, but I think biggest struggle for us lately and frustration was meetup.com and all the tools we use to advertise it, because Meetup gradually over the course of last year just becoming unusable, more expensive. Camp Central is subsidizing Meetup.com usage for the organizers, but the usability of it, for example, not getting notification when someone cannot get into the building, it's more and more frustrating. So we see more and more communities moving to ticketing system, moving to LinkedIn, moving to Facebook, moving to Slack. So it seems like it's actually this one big juggernaut that cannot sort the paperclips, and it seems like that's going to be another challenge that definitely going to hit a lot of communities, especially one that rely on single source of information.
That's really interesting. I'm just going to throw this out in case you're listening. Daniel Gavignon, who runs the Laravel meetup in Perth, has been, if you're listening to the live stream right now, mate, we've been talking about replacing meetup.com and rebuilding it using Laravel for the Laravel meetup. So maybe that's a partnership we can do between the Laravel meetup and the WordPress meetup. They can build it and we'll use it. Okay, because I'm looking for a good alternative right now.
I think the community's working on alternatives.
I think there are alternatives out there that are being worked on, but it is definitely a limitation. I think there's not many meetup organisers at the moment that enjoy using Meetup. I also think feedback we've got is a lot of people. We have our own WordPress community on Facebook, so we have just like a Facebook group for people that live in Perth that use WordPress. And we started that because most of the people that were coming to our meetup don't know what Slack is. They don't want to use Slack. It's not something they're familiar with. So Slack's great for developers, but a lot of the people that use WordPress are not developers. Likewise, nobody was using Meetup. It wasn't a thing where they were actively looking for the meetups, and so the only way that they were hearing about it before we started using Facebook was from it showing on the dashboard, and a lot of people just don't ever customize their location, so they never see it come up. And a lot of people also just don't log into their dashboard that often. I know a lot of people who have their own WordPress websites that probably don't go in there every week to do their updates like they should do. So how do we get the word out there? I think that's been a real challenge for us to get the numbers. And then something that I think was really interesting from George's talk, if anyone caught that, he was talking about his experience with the great talk, by the way, with his community in the Philippines and what they do. And I think some of the feedback we've received is Perth, if you haven't been there, there's no people in Perth.
They all live outside of it.
We're 50%. There's Ross, me, and Sandra, and Sandra's sisters here as well. And then we've got a few other people. But even the people that are here, I live 35 minutes away from Perth. We've got, are you in the, Rachel? Rachel lives 2.5 hour drive from Perth. So we're very spread out. Our population is very distanced from each other. So expecting people to make it to the city for a 6:30 or 6 o'clock start is kind of wild.
So let me ask you this. So we're talking about meetup at this point. So there's some who may not know what a meetup is, and traditionally a meetup has been let's get everybody together in a room, let's put on pizza, let's have somebody talk about some aspect of WordPress. Not unlike the presentations you hear here, and in actual fact, it's often a good training ground for people who want to come on and present here. But there are other kinds of meetups. So the question that I have next is, how can we leverage ideas from next-gen WordCamps potentially to kickstart stagnant meetups.
You know what, Dee? It's almost like we planned this, because I think something that I really took away from George's talk is I asked him at the end, like, what do your meetups look like? And he said they're basically like mini WordCamps. And, we'll have a couple of speakers, and there's a bit of networking and a lot of networking because they're Filipino and that's what they do best. But they run theirs often like on a Saturday. And I thought that was really interesting. I've never even considered who would go to a meetup on a Saturday?
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, I literally had never even thought that was an option. And Rachel, actually, I met her back in 2020 when we ran a Do Action event. Has anyone heard of Do Action? Yeah, like 5 people? Cool. So Do Action is a charity hackathon. And it's basically where you get a whole bunch of volunteers in a room and you build websites for charities using WordPress. It's an awesome idea. I love it. I have many ideas about how not to do it based on what we learnt. But it's a great opportunity. And do I think that you should try and build 8 charity websites in a day? No. I don't think that you should try and do that. But I think it's a great idea for a meetup to get a bunch of people together on a Saturday and try and build a website for a charity that you're passionate about. Maybe that's something we could do that's a little bit different from the status quo.
I'm actually sitting here instead of Luke, who's supposed to be here, but he's away. He runs Sunshine Coast Meetup, which I think the only rural meetup in Australia at the moment active. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he does something interesting. He does 9 a.m. Friday coffee.
Yeah.
And I saw that appearing here and there, so I thought that's another alternative to actually bring people in for a cafe. You don't have to have a talk. Me, on the other hand, being a teacher, I like to see people going away with something. So another thing I tried is actually run like a mini contribution sprint, where I prepare, for example, documentation to work on, just review, and we'll all work together if there are no speakers. So this couple of ideas we can bounce off.
Yep.
Yeah, I had to look up what next gen meetup was, I must admit, because I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. One of the things that I think might be interesting is one of the cool things about the WordPress community is it's such a broad range of types of people using WordPress for different things. You've got business owners, marketers, bloggers, and then there's also the technical side. You can go like really deep into the development side of things as well. And I think there'd be like an opportunity to sort of have specific events or specific meetups for some of those focused just on, for example, the development side or just on the marketing, because then you could really target it for those types of use cases. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be an interesting sort of idea to explore as well.
Cool. Anything to add, Sandra?
I'm going to be 100% honest. I did not look up what next gen was. But I'm just going to take a stab in the dark. I think that, we're developers, well, most of us, or I'm assuming, I'm not 100% sure actually, some of us are developers. Maybe providing a space where we can like peer code together as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Like we're learning amazing stuff. Let's try and do it here. I think that's... Yeah.
I've got a mate that every so often will go, let's just co-work. And so I'll go to his house and we'll sit at his kitchen table and work for the day. That's a WordPress meetup. That's how we met. But it's also a good opportunity to go out for a pub lunch. But which, if I'm not mistaken, is probably the core reason that we do it. But you here, Pete? Is Pete still here? Yeah, that's the primary reason. Okay, so there's activity happening in Perth and in Brisbane, in the Sunshine Coast. It's not the first time I've heard about coffee meetups. I actually quite like that idea. But who needs help? What else do we need? We can kind of go through who's doing well, but those are the 3 kind of events that I know of. Just as a show in the audience, is anybody else organising or doing things that we don't even necessarily know about? So, Jamin?
Yeah, we've restarted Ipswich.
So Ipswich is meeting up?
About a couple of catch-ups.
Awesome.
sort of started what got all the way to. Our
Yeah.
biggest challenge is the venue, trying to find a venue. Yeah. So our challenge is trying to find a venue. Obviously we've got people that are willing to go, we've got people who are going to speak.
Yeah.
Traditionally it's normally been us talking because speakers is difficult.
Yeah.
We've had Cameron come a couple of times, so so the venue's the biggest problem for us.
Okay.
It's a
Anybody in Ipswich got a venue?
catch-ups are great.
Yeah, coffee catch-ups is a good start. Was there somebody in here? Yeah, there was down here. Okay, so we'll come down via John.
Get your mic.
Yeah, come down via John and then we'll come down here, down the front.
So I just want to check. Vladimir, did you say you didn't know of other regional meetups happening?
Was that my question?
No, it was Vladimir. I just caught the end of his comment. I just wondered if he said what he'd said was he didn't know of other regional.
I said
rural.
I didn't know if there are any other regional meetup that are active. I know
Right.
Ipswich stopped at one point.
Yeah.
They did reach out and they stopped. Gold Coast did the same, and yeah, I'm not aware of any.
There's a little bit of, I think there's stuff happening in Port Macquarie, is there? There are coffee or bits and pieces happening in Port?
There-
Coffee catch-ups as well.
Great.
So there's a monthly one that happens in Toowoomba.
Awesome.
Like every month, very regular. Which leads me to think of one. There are two critical success factors, I think. One of which was sort of heard here for running an event like that. One is a really strong leader who's going to be committed to at least publicising and running and making sure that people know of an event on a regular basis. And generally speaking, when that leader goes, the thing falls apart. So succession planning also important, but if you have a strong leader, as Will has done for the Sydney meetup group, that works really well.
Yeah.
The other one I like is the blitz approach for getting something done. So getting a whole lot of people together for a small amount of time for a defined project with a defined outcome is a really good way of appealing to human factors that also builds community whilst delivering something. It's a great technique.
Which is exactly what the do action situation is. There's a question or a comment or a contribution from our friend down here. Thanks, Ross. Please don't slip.
Hi, so I've been the organizer team member for WordPress Mumbai community since 2013. So it's been 11 years we've been doing.
Wow.
So what we've figured out is that having consistency is important. Irrespective. So what we've done, the community, whoever has come in the past knows that every second Saturday, we will have a meetup, whether one person shows up or whether 20 people show up. So if someone is aware of the community, they will know that, okay, if I'm in the city or if I'm around, they will end up coming to the venue because we have fixed venues. So we have 4 venue sponsors actually. So we are the other way around. We have 4 venue sponsors and we've also opened our speaker application wherein you can just apply to talk. We'll do the entire organization of the entire thing. So the team, we have a strong team of like almost 15 people who are regularly involved with a monthly activity. Plus we keep experimenting. So we have a fixed coffee shop day also. We have a fixed venue day also. And we keep experimenting with other cities in India, which is like, so what we do is we have like a Zoom session, which is like a co-working session, wherein there's no agenda. You come on Zoom, the room is fixed. So you just break out if you want and ask your questions. If not, you're just working. Like you're doing your regular day-to-day work. If you're a freelancer, if you're working in a company, you're doing your regular activity. It's just that there's no agenda. And in case someone has a question, you just ping and you just get that question resolved and you keep a huddle. So what ends up happening is you're working on your project yourself. But if a question comes up, people just huddle and start answering that as a community.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I like that. Thank you. So some of the things I'm hearing is like, there are things happening, but we're not hearing about it. So how can we, was that a time check?
No.
Oh, there's another question?
There's a question.
Okay, cool. So,
yours first.
Yeah. How do we, we have WP Australia. I don't even know how many people know about that. So we have a website, WP Australia, and so there is some, it's possible to have transmission of information through there. It's like, yeah, I feel like there's a piece missing at the moment of how are we all in the same circle and hearing about all of this stuff.
On the WP Australia Slack. Like,
okay.
probably more than half.
Yeah. Again, people like Facebook, we're not all on Facebook. People like Slack, we're not all. I don't love it either, but I'm on it because of groups that I'm in. That's the only reason I'm on it. So.
Hello?
Yep.
So I'm in Penrith, for instance, and coming into Sydney for the meetup is not great. So there used to be one in Parramatta, which I used to go to. Like I said, I'm out Penrith way, and I'm happy to be involved in starting one out Penrith way, for instance, that caters for Lower Mountains, Penrith, Camden, all that area, Hawkesbury Hills, etc. But the thing is, it's how do we know how to reach out to the people. So I can reach out to people in the community and say, hey, if you're a developer or whatever, into WordPress, come along. But how do we, like you say, get the message more broadly out so people know that there are these options available?
Yeah.
And I know, for instance, Will, for anybody here, Will does say that there is money available and there's things available and things to help new organisers. So obviously I'll tap into Will, but just so everyone else knows.
Well, it's one of the things I'm hearing is I'm a project manager, so now I'm hearing a project of revitalise WordPress in Australia, and I hear things like people who don't know where to start. Okay, well, we can do sessions. I know that WordPress.org offers a whole lot of sessions and training and all this kind of stuff, so we can tap into that information as well. But Vlad had his hand up first, Joe. Sorry.
Joomla community is quite small one, but they're regularly there. So they moved out of meetup.com a couple of months ago and moved to joomlaaustralia.org, I think. And they just basically catch up once a month. And again, there is no set agenda unless someone brings it. And they just have a conversation for about an hour.
Yeah.
And then there might be a topic. I've been there a couple of times, and there might be a topic appear, and then everyone starts discussing it, and then it turns into more of a panel.
Yeah.
So, but they decided to move out of Facebook and Meetup just to use their own system. On non-IT related topic, I've been volunteering for parkruns for the last also about 18 months, and that's a very similar situation where Parkrun built a system where they kind of stand alone, and that's the hub where people go to check where the Parkrun is closer to them, or when they travel and try to do a Saturday run, where the community, and it seems to work for them, having actually a solid single source of truth.
Beautiful. You were going to say something, Joe.
I was just going to say, I've all of these ideas that are coming together in my head right now, same as you, Dee. So actually, just after the lightning talks, there is a bunch of my students here from the She Codes community, and we actually have, some of you might have caught Kitty's talk yesterday. She was amazing. Some of you might have caught Sandra's talk today. She's also amazing. Her sister's floating around, who is also a She Codes grad, and I think one of Kitty's friends is also floating around from the Sydney cohort. And we actually have a WordPress tutorial, but I wrote it 5 or 6 years ago, and it was before the block editor existed. And we desperately need to overhaul it. And we were like, hey, we should all just get all of the people from across all of the different states and get together on Zoom and rewrite the tutorial. And I was like, you know what? That would be a great way to bring the community together. So if anyone wants to help us rewrite the tutorial, awesome. Maybe that can be a WP Australia meetup. And we can start maybe spreading the community and not relying on just having a WordCamp once a year to be talking across the states.
Thank you. So we got a question. Sam? No, I was just about to go. I have one other question, and then we can open the floor and continue the conversation. Yeah. Nope.
Sorry, my voice is loud anyway. All good.
No, use the mic.
Use the mic so they...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's working. Okay, cool. Awesome. I'm just thinking out loud, more or less, if we can get more people on the Slack does have a huddle feature, and it can huddle an entire channel, not just like a glorified phone call. So if we want to kind of nick the WP Mumbai idea and just do the glorified sort of Hangouts online kind of thing, we can do that with the huddle feature in an entire channel. So if you're online, you can just jump in. Sorry?
Pro feature.
It's a pro feature.
Our WP Slack is not pro.
There's Discord, but I know swapping to Discord's kind of a pain in the bum.
It's Google Meet. Google Meet can do that too. There are tools. It's all There's some great things in the pro features, but
there's an idea. If anyone wants to sponsor our Discord, raise your hand. Everyone's putting their hand up. Great, awesome job.
Had a thought. No. So I guess the next thing, and we've probably covered this a little bit, but are there things other than meetups that help continue to build that community? And I think the idea of, co-working virtually with people is one, but are there other things that we could do?
Yes, I think that everyone in this room has the potential to be an agent for change. So you've just been at a really great conference. When you go back to your regular life and you meet other people, or you're in other spaces where tech related, talk about it. Talk about what you just experienced. People really relate to, coming to events like this and being like, oh, that sounds really amazing. I'd love to be a part of a community like that. So just speaking about your experience, I think, is pretty powerful. And I'm going to give maybe a Gen Z-ish answer.
Go.
And just say, social media is pretty powerful too. Doing things to activate in these online spaces can be pretty powerful. And I know, a lot of she codes, what we do is a lot of kind of marketing in that capacity.
Yeah.
So, and also human interest as well, showing the value of for a particular person and that somebody else can relate to, and then possibly, be like, oh, that could be me.
Awesome.
Two things. After George's talk, which was really good, one of the things I thought of was, doing more for the general WordPress, I guess, community and for people outside the WordPress community, doing more project showcases as well of things that are built with WordPress to sort of show people that aren't involved in the WordPress space what can be done with WordPress. Yeah. I think will be really powerful to help bring other people in. And then to follow on from your answer as well, I think things like YouTube. There's a couple of developers that do live coding and things like that on YouTube, and streaming and things like that on platforms like Twitch, etc. Yeah. I think those sort of things for a certain group of people is quite entertaining and fun to watch, and they often build their own communities around those sort of things as well. So those sort of two things that I thought of.
For a while, another friend that I met through WordPress. And this was unrelated to WordPress, so a number of the people that followed them on Twitch were also from that community, but they were what they call body doubling. They have ADHD, and so one of the things that they found helped them focus was to do their work while they were Twitch live streaming. And so they had there were 8 or so of us that would be part of that conversation. And they were live streaming, and they would they'd do a Pomodoro, work for 20 minutes, have a 5-minute break, stop and chat, work for and we were doing this as well. But it was like this, I've made friends out of that audience this is such a strange thing. And I'm like, what a modern world that we live in, because I am Gen X, not Gen Z. But it feels like there are so many ideas out there, and I really want to kind of bang on the WP Australia Slack as well, because so many of us are there. I saw our speaker that just before this is also from Melbourne, and so there's a group of us now starting to kind of talk in the Melbourne channel about let's get together, and we're not even talking about doing a meetup, let's just get together for dinner and start building those relationships. And I feel like for me it's going to come out of that. I don't want to go straight back into trying to find a venue, I did that for a long time, and I got burnt out, and so I haven't gone back. But it feels like we're meeting people here, we're having opportunities to Sarah. It was Sarah Linklater. I just saw your face. I've just invited you to the Melbourne channel and WordPress Slack. So just start. We've made some connections here, and I think one of the important things for me in this space is let's not lose the momentum. You've made some connections, we've made some people here. We can continue to maintain those connections in Slack, and then let's kind of, let's go out for dinner. There's those of us in Melbourne, let's go out and have a drink and a curry, and talk about what else we can do and start building those relationships, because it feels to me that's kind of the place that, for us, it's going to end up coming out of that, hopefully. That's my plan anyway. What time? We've got 5 more minutes. Are we going to the quarter hour? Is that the plan? Yeah, I should have been all over that. Not me. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments or questions from the floor? Cam. Oh, you're sorry. Yeah, go closer to the mic.
2 parts. One, how do we join the WP Australia Slack? Can we put it up on the...
If you go...
wpaustralia.com wpaustralia.com.au, I think.
No, wpaustralia.org. If you go to that website, there's a link on that website that says, and it'll be on the. I know that at the end of the closing slides, we'll all talk about it as well. wpaustralia.org, and there's a link on that site that says WordPress Australia Slack, and you can just go there and sign straight up.
Cool.
It's a free Slack, so the more people we have talking, the less length of time your conversations will stick around, but we don't care. So it's just a great point of connection for everybody. It's really helpful.
That is, in terms of centralisation and sharing resources, do we share resources between our meetups, and how can our organisers, instead of being broken apart, as he mentioned in Mumbai, where they're working more as a team across multiple meetups? So how can we leverage the work that we're doing on our individual meetups too?
Yeah, there is some cross-pollination. I think a lot of the organisers, in fact, not all of them. I don't know if you're in that channel, Vlad. There is an organisers channel in that Slack.
Yeah, we brought that in recently. But
Yeah.
if anyone else is organising something in Australia and isn't in our organiser channel, please reach out to any one of the people that's wearing a yellow vest, and we would love to have you as part of our
I think it's a
group
closed
where we
channel
can-
at the moment. I think we might need to open that up actually,
Yeah,
so
maybe.
we don't lose some visibility there.
And the other thing which I think kind of touches on that is that we do have shared sponsorship between between the meetups. So our pizzas and stuff like that are covered from shared sponsors across all of the Australian meetups.
So this is one of the things that I think we have that's a real advantage, is the support that we get from Linux Australia makes a lot of that infrastructure possible. So I feel like we've got a really good kind of base, and they liaise with. We funnel sponsors through there. They've liaised with. They've got a memorandum of understanding with WordPress.org, and so there's a lot of. We've got a lot of options and a lot of possibility there and about how we can organise, and that's just one of the really useful things that we have in terms of support. So we can buy pizzas for meetups. We can pay if we needed to, if there were venues that needed needed payment for hire within some boundaries around that. So we have these tools in place, but I feel like this is kind of the first step in actually starting to consolidate and actually bring people together and working a little bit more together rather than a whole lot of independent things going on.
While we're waiting for the next question, I'm just going to answer your earlier question of what else can we do differently, or what are the things that you need help with. I'm going to say, again, coming back to George, so it was fantastic, honestly.
Everybody needs to watch the YouTube.
It was so good. Go back
Yeah.
and watch the YouTube video. But he mentioned about just grab someone and offer to, mentor them or be their buddy or do something. So my commitment is if anyone else wants to help organise a meetup, I am here to mentor you. So just reach out. I will happily share my experiences and what not to do and what to do. And I'm sure that the same goes for anyone else who's organised a meetup.
Cam has a mic in his hand.
Hey guys, this might be slightly spicy. How spicy? We'll see.
Vindaloo or...
Obviously COVID didn't help and killed a lot of the community around. Before COVID, there was probably 20 meetups Australia-wide that were fairly active in one way or another. I've seen the same sort of issues across pretty much every single one. Organiser burnout is a big one. Finding speakers is another one. Finding venues, that seems to be the biggest issues that is across the board. And I'm just wondering, I've been wondering this for a few years, but especially in light of events of the last month, whether the WordPress Foundation is adequate for the community in Australia, and whether some sort of corporate backing might be better to serve the community here. There's been a few companies who have traditionally contributed a lot to the community here in Australia who are barred from doing so at the moment. Envato and WP Engine in particular, I'm thinking of, who've spent a lot of money on sponsorships in the past. That reduces the amount of people who can contribute and, that sort of thing. And there's obviously a lot of guidelines that come from the foundation, we can't pay speakers, we can't compensate organisers, that sort of thing. So, and obviously we have Linux Australia as well, who provide a lot of support, which, would help organised things that's already in place. So if there were thoughts of having some sort of alternative structure, say a company wanted to put a lot of money behind getting meetups off the ground in a non-foundation way, that might be a bit more sustainable. Like if organisers were being compensated in some way, that might help with the burnout. If speakers were being compensated in some way, these sorts of things that aren't allowed under the current structure, and whether there had been thoughts around exploring if an alternative, way of,
I hear what you're saying,
doing
Cam.
it might be viable.
That's a really, really difficult question to answer when we are at an event that is sponsored by WordPress.org and the foundation. I've had a lot of conversations. You're not the only person that has raised that as a thought. I feel like if money was the only issue, we can work around that. Like I feel like it's not really just money is the only issue. I feel like the state that we're in at the moment, I feel like there is probably, for some people, that's going to be a suppressor on the desire to keep organising. And so that's one of the things that probably makes me the most sad about the state that we're in the moment. I've been one of those people who's like, do I really want to keep doing that? And I think addressing some of those issues before we even get to a conversation around shall we fork the community in Australia, I don't think we're ready for that conversation yet. I'm certainly not ready to have that conversation here. So, but I feel like we've got a great cohort and a great community. We are wrapped around a great product, whatever all of the other challenges that we're seeing around it are. And at the moment, I think we need to focus on that and focus on that. Yeah, I think at this point. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. You're not the only person to ask the question. Which brings us to after 5:15, and I think to the end of this panel. Please raise your hands for our panelists, Sandra, Zach, Vladimir and Joe. We're here if you want to ask any other questions.